I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of my investigation, a story that is difficult to understand. A 32-year-old man allegedly confined inside his home and his room for decades, deprived of food, weighing only 68 pounds. Here's the story. In the heart of Waterbury, Connecticut, a harrowing story of alleged torment has shocked the local community. Kimberly Sullivan, 56 years old, stands accused of subjecting her stepson to unimaginable cruelty, confining him within their Blake Street residence for over 2 decades. These allegations came to light on February 17, 2025, when the victim set fire to his home in hopes of being rescued. First responders discovered the 32-year-old man emaciated to a mere 68 pounds. He recounted a life of isolation, locked away since the tender age of 11, surviving on meager rations and deprived of basic human dignities. The house itself mirrored his torment, rooms filled with refuse, structural decay, and the scent of despair. Sullivan now faces a litany of charges: second-degree kidnapping, first-degree assault, unlawful restraint, cruelty to persons, and reckless endangerment. Despite the alleged evidence, she proclaims her innocence, attributing the tragic circumstances to her late husband. I told you, it's difficult to understand how this could happen. How could someone be locked up for that many years and no one did anything? No one noticed? No one knew? And then he gets discovered because he sets fire to the home and someone comes to the house and carries him out. I want you to take a look at the arrest affidavit. There's a lot of details in there, a lot of allegations in there. From the victim here. Upon reviewing the male victim, Officer Inzatari observed that he was extremely emaciated. His hair was matted and unkempt. He was very dirty, and his teeth all appear to be rotten. He stated that he had been locked in that house his entire life, adding that Kimberly Sullivan keeps him locked inside his bedroom. The male victim stated that he was permanently pulled out of school due to the fact the school he was attending contacted the Department of Children and Families based on what he was doing in school. He was always hungry, so when he was at school, he would ask others for their food, steal others' food, and sometimes eat food out of the garbage. The male victim added that on weekends, he would be let out of his room for longer periods of time by his father. The male victim stated that while Sullivan took his sisters to events to see friends, his father would allow him to come out and watch television with him. When discussing his father dying, he stated that his captivity and restraint got even worse. The male victim stated that it got to a point where the only time he would ever be out of the house once his father died was to let the family dog out in the back of the property, stating that it was only about a minute a day. So for decades, his father is in the home with his stepmother, but on January 25th, 2024, his father died. So from that point forward, his father was no longer there, obviously, but his stepmother was still there. So in light of all these allegations, the condition of this 32-year-old man at 68 pounds, and his allegations that he made to police and how he looked and everything else involved in this case, all of that brings us to a first question in our investigation, and it's an important one, real significant one, which is about the defendant. What is Kimberly Sullivan's defense? And what is she going to say? Like, will there be an explanation? Will there be a defense to the allegations here? Well, there's one really good way to find this out, and we're going to do it right now. Here with us, the attorney for Kimberly Sullivan joining us. Ioannis Koulaitis. Ioannis, thanks so much for joining us tonight. Really do appreciate it. I know you're a busy guy, and you came down to the studio in New York tonight, so we appreciate that. So let's talk about the defense. What is the defense going to be about in this case?
Well, good evening, Vinnie, and thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity. So everyone's asking what the defense is going to be in this case, and to some extent it's premature to get into specifics and details about everything that we are going to allege or what we're going to present at trial. We're still getting the discovery in this case. We're still sorting through exactly all the details about the allegation and finding out more about the state's case. What I can tell you is my client denies having done anything wrong. The defense will be that this didn't happen. The details will come out. But our defense is that she did not commit this offense.
So, and I appreciate it. I'm an attorney too, and I know your obligations in representing someone and how that works. So, what role will the father, the biological father of this 32-year-old man, play in the defense? And how much do you suspect the jury will find out about the father? And how much do you know about his role in everything that transpired over the course of decades, is what the allegations are?
So we are going to get into that. We are still sifting through a lot of that information. What I can tell you is that the father is the one that dictated how his son would be raised. This was not my client's biological son. She did not make the determination as to schooling, being pulled out of school. A lot has been put on her, and that is simply not the case. We anticipate the evidence that will come out at trial will show that he is the one that made the decisions for his son.
Was she at all concerned about the health of this 32-year-old? And just going from the arrest affidavit, right, hasn't been cross-examined, I understand, but the appearance, just the physical appearance of a 32-year-old man being 68 pounds, teeth are all rotted out, the hair is matted, all of that. Did she have any concern about his health, his well-being?
I believe she did. But one thing I want to point out, he's 32 years old. She could not control whether he took care of himself properly or not. He was 32 years old. What I can tell you is she denies ever restraining him. She denies ever locking him in a room. She denies ever depriving him of any of these opportunities.
Do we know, and obviously your client lived in the house the whole time, I presume, right, with the father, her husband. At any point during the course of his life, not in the last year since the father passed away, but when the father was still in the house, did he restrain his son? Did he deprive his son of food? Because another one of the allegations was that this child, when he was a child, 2 decades ago, he was always hungry.
My understanding is there was always food in the house. There was no restrictions on the ability to get food in the house. And I know you asked about earlier, but what I can tell you, when the police went in that home, there was food in the cupboards, there was food in the refrigerator. My understanding is he had access to this.
And let's talk about the victim in the case, the 32-year-old, or the alleged victim, obviously, as to your client. I would still say he's a victim of his father as a child, being pulled out of school, and then not educated. What are your... Is he not telling the truth? Do you believe that he is making allegations that are false, like he himself, not the prosecutor, but statements that he's making to investigators and to police are factually inaccurate about what was taking place in the last year?
Well, look, I don't want to come on here and bash this individual, but what I can tell you, based on the discovery I have seen, the interviews I have watched, there will be significant credibility issues This case ultimately is going to come down to credibility. There is no independent smoking gun. There's no video. There's no admissions. It will be one person's word against another's, potentially.
And what was the nature of their relationship after the father passed away? How would you describe this stepmother-child, who's an adult, obviously, but what was their relationship like? Because they're living in the same house.
I don't have specifics as to their relationship. Nothing that has been indicated to me indicates that it was a hostile relationship in any way. They both lived in the home. I'm unaware of any significant problems between them while in the home.
Okay, Ioannis is going to stay with us. He's been gracious enough to stay for 2 segments. We appreciate that. Coming up next, why was his biological mother not in his life?
That's it. I have 2 cats.
Everybody's out?
Yeah.
But your stepson's still inside?
Yeah.
Lori Daybell.
Already convicted for the murders of her children.
Doomsday cult mom is now lawyer Lori.
She's representing herself.
On charges of conspiring to murder her 4th husband.
She said, I can murder you now.
She really thinks she's equipped to try this case.
She appears very sure of herself.
I have real trial experience.
It's going to be a strange trial. We'll see how it plays out.
The Cult Mom Conspiracy Trial. Live coverage begins Monday morning, only on Court TV.
That's it. I have 2 cats.
Everybody's out?
Yeah.
But your stepson's still inside?
Yeah, he's right here.
Okay,
yes.
come out. Come down the road. Come on, come on. It's not safe to stay here. Come on.
All right, here he is. All right, my dog is shaking.
I know. Come down here.
That's the stepmother, Kimberly Sullivan, who is getting out of the house, and then her stepson is carried out of the house as well. That was on fire. The stepson apparently set the fire. He says he set it because he was captive in the house and wanted someone to rescue him. And now Kimberly Sullivan's been charged with a litany of charges involving what happened to that 32-year-old over the course of years inside that home. Now, that's his stepmom. This is his biological mother. And I spoke with her here on Court TV and asked her about, what happened and how her ex ended up with her son and sort of a little bit of the backstory here. Take a listen.
I know when his father and myself were together, he was not a bad guy. I don't know if he was vindictful that we had split up. I don't know. I'm still trying to grasp all this, and it's really, really, really hard. I thought the safest place he would be was with a parent, with his father. And that didn't happen.
And if you are struggling, right, and then you know that he may be able to take care of your son, that was the right choice to make. That's the choice. That's the selfless choice that a mother makes who wants the best for their child.
So. You would think so. He was kept with monsters.
That's Tracy Vallerin. Now, she's the biological mother, but she was never in her child's life. She was never there. Like, she was not a part of what was happening. He was being raised by his father and I guess his stepmother, which brings us to the next question in our investigation. And it's about Tracy. Why was his biological mother not in his life? Was she being kept away from him? Still with us, the attorney representing the stepmother, Kimberly Sullivan. Ioannis Kalaitis is still with us. Ioannis, was she purposely kept away, do you know? by her ex, by the father, by the stepmom?
So, not to my knowledge. It's my understanding, and first off, you know, my heart goes out to her. I think any parent would feel for her, and I understand the whirlwind of emotions that she may be going through as a parent. That having been said, she's never met my client. I don't believe she's ever attempted to communicate with my client. I don't believe she's ever attempted to contact my client. She's, by her own words, has never met my client, but has gone so far as to call her a monster. And that is concerning. As we are trying to ensure my client gets a fair trial, we see a lot of people that are surfacing now, people that have not been in his life, that are quick to rush to judgment and say horrible things about my client. So we do intend on pushing back. So I am sympathetic to her situation, but I don't know what she adds to this case, what evidentiary value she has. So, yeah. As far as your question as to why she might not be in his life, I think she's alluded to that herself. I don't have more details. She's alluded to having issues many years ago. I'll let other people get to the bottom of that.
Sure. And what I was wondering from your perspective, if your client had mentioned anything about purposely keeping her out, or if there was a concerted effort by the father to ensure that the mother never had a role in her son's life. But that does not necessarily seem to be the case from your perspective. Let me ask you about the house itself. Who owns the house? Does your client own the house? Does the stepson own the house?
I believe she owns the home.
Okay. And the lock. There's been a lot of talk about a lock being on the outside of the door of his bedroom. Is that something that you concede, or is that a misinterpretation of what the setup was in the house?
So what you're showing there is just one of the many pictures that were released by the Waterbury Police Department. These pictures were released without context, in the middle of a pending case, and we believe they're extremely prejudicial. Because it's unclear what locks were where. What I can tell you is a number of the interior doors had exterior locks. Those locks, we believe, were in the home prior to my client ever moving in. They were not installed by my client. And there were locks on almost all the exterior doors in the home. So we disagree with the premise that he was ever locked in that room, or that any of those exterior locks were even used.
Was he able to walk?
Yes.
Did he have do we know if he had a driver's license, or?
I don't believe so.
Did he have access to money? Did he work? Did he, I don't know if he worked remotely, or if he did anything, or had an allowance, an inheritance? Do we know any of that?
I don't know the details of that. But as far as the home was provided by my client. There was food in the home. There was water. He had access to everything within the home.
Did he ever see a doctor over the course of a couple of decades?
I don't have specifics. Based on what he has told police, he did not go to the doctor. But any decision about him going to any doctors, those are decisions that the father made.
And was there any, he's a 32-year-old man living in her home. You're saying it's her home, in her home at that point. Was there ever any discussions about, okay, well, you know, maybe you have to, you know, find your own place, or maybe you have to get a job, or were there any conversations like that inside the home?
I don't know the specifics about that.
And
as far as employment and stuff like that. I have spoken to my client. My understanding is she didn't prevent him from showering, didn't prevent him from eating, encouraged both. is actually my understanding.
And did your client work? Was she home all the time? Does she work? And I'm just wondering, because I'm wondering if there are times when he's home alone or was home alone.
Oh, absolutely. She worked a retail position about 30 minutes away from her home. She worked that position for years. He was home alone quite often, not restrained in any way.
And were there phones inside the home? Like the old-fashioned phones? I don't know if he had a cell phone, but like old-fashioned phones. And then did he have a cell phone?
I don't believe he had a cell phone, but I believe he did indicate to police that there was a landline at one point in that home.
All right. Because we have you on here, I just want to just open up. Is there anything else that you want people to know that I haven't asked you about?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The main reason why I came on here tonight is because there has been such a rush to judgment. Almost all the coverage I have seen, respectfully, assumes that this actually occurred. I have yet to hear anyone objectively question any of the allegations. When you look at the pictures, I would ask, look and ask yourself what's not in those pictures. What evidence of restraint do we have? We have exterior locks on all the outside doors. There's no chains, there's no bars, there's no handcuffs, there's no physical marks showing he's been restrained. There's not even an allegation of physical violence to restrain him. There's been a rush to judgment, and I know the whole world thinks she's guilty, and the whole world thinks that we should lynch her without a trial, and that she shouldn't even have a defense. And I'm here to push back on that. This case is far from done. It is far from over. And we intend to fight this. We intend to fight this. And I'd ask people, don't rush to judgment. Because when you see the evidence, it's going to paint a different picture. And what I've told people, there's a long road from allegations in a warrant to provable facts. And you know that as a prosecutor. And this case is going to come down to credibility, and there's a lot to be done between now and the time of trial. But we're confident in our case. Ms. Sullivan has been clear to me that she has done nothing wrong. She has come to me and asked for help, and we intend to defend her, and we're going to push forward. And we're pushing back on the notion that she's guilty and we should just forego a trial. We're looking forward to a trial.
Ioannis Politan, appreciate it. And you know, here at Court TV, you have an open invitation anytime we cover this story. We always want both sides. And I think our viewers understand there's always at least two sides to every story inside of a courtroom. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Up next, what were the conditions inside the home? I'm Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation of a man allegedly held captive over 2 decades and weighing only 68 pounds at age 32. And now his stepmother is facing serious charges. Here's the story. In the middle of Waterbury, Connecticut, Kimberly Sullivan's residence concealed a harrowing secret. Prosecutors allege that within this home, Sullivan subjected her stepson to over 2 decades of captivity and abuse. The victim, now 32, was reportedly confined to a small, unheated room with locked windows and an externally secured door. Deprived of adequate food and medical care, he was found weighing a mere 68 pounds. His body bearing signs of prolonged neglect. Authorities discovered the room in squalid conditions, walls marred by mold, structural decay, and makeshift sanitation facilities. This grim reality came to light when the stepson set a fire in a desperate bid for freedom. Sullivan now faces multiple charges, including second-degree kidnapping and first-degree assault, as the community grapples with the shocking revelations from this house of horrors. The allegations in this story, you know, make you scratch your head and wonder, how could anyone do that? Well, the defendant is saying none of it's true. None of this is true. That the facts will bear it out. Let's take a look, though, at what really started this story, which was a fire at the house and a rescue by first responders.
Come over here. Go down the road. Come on. Come down. Come down.
Come on, down.
Who else is in the house? Who else is in here? Do you
My
look here?
stepson is in here.
How many other people? Listen,
That's it. I have 2 cats.
Everybody's out?
Yes.
Oh, your stepson's still inside?
Yeah, he's right here.
Okay,
yes.
come out. Come down the road. Come on, come on. It's not safe to stay here. Come on.
All right, here he is. All right, my dog is
Come on.
shaking.
I know. Come down here. That's the 87 code 33 victim. Fire victim.
Okay.
Come on.
My dog is,
right here.
I
Come
know
on.
my dog.
I know. Come on.
I'm coming.
You're seeing that one victim right here. You just stay over here.
So the house was set on fire, and the 32-year-old was carried out of that house and rescued from the fire, but he is saying he was rescued from confinement over the course of decades inside that home, which brings us to the next question in our investigation. What were the conditions inside the home? Was it really bad? Was he living in squalor? Was he locked inside of his room for decades? Joining us, Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas, an author and certified mental health counselor who specializes in child abuse, neglect, and trauma, Sharonda Brown, who is also celebrating a birthday. So happy birthday to Sharonda. Thank you for joining us on this special day. Cody, let me begin with you. We've got some images of this home. Can you show us some of them and so we get an idea of what it looked like inside this house? Again, this is after the fire.
Absolutely, Vinny. You took the words right out of my mouth. Important for our viewers to know these photos are taken by police after the fire. So, of course, along with the dirty, filthy rooms cluttered with stuff, you'll see walls stained with smoke and debris from the fire. But what we also see, Vinny, is what that victim mentioned to detectives, and it was logged in the warrant affidavit for Kimberly Sullivan. We see door frames with locks only on the outside, not on the inside as well. So kind of implying that these could have been rooms that the victim could have been trapped in. So let's take a look at some of those locks right now. You see it right there on your screen there, Vinny. You see in that door frame right there, the golden lock sitting on the outside. That's the inside view right there. That's what the victim was referencing to investigators when they interviewed him. Now, as we move along, Vinny, we could look at the outside of the house too, just to get an idea of what this looked like. And of course, for our viewers, this is after the fire. Once again, you see those windows boarded up.
That's one of the issues, isn't it? One of the issues is the windows and whether or not they were locked in the home.
If he could have escaped that way.
Right, if he could get out of the window if the door was locked.
Or if he wanted to bust the windows, but again, that could be difficult at only 68 pounds at 32 years old. But now we go inside the house and we see a view of this dirty staircase here. And you see down the hallway, you see a bunch of stuff everywhere, some debris on that staircase. It looks like those stairs are covered with carpet, but even that carpet looks a little dingy, looks a little moldy. You can get an idea of of how dirty it could be. Now we move on to another bottom floor room here, Vinny. You see stuff is all over the place. You see that door in the background, looks like that's the front door as well. Again, that's the bottom floor, just a bunch of stuff all over the place. And then we get here, Vinny, to the messy kitchen. And this location is important. You see all the food all over the counters. This is important because police say this is where the victim was found in the fetal position under a table here in the kitchen when they responded to that fire.
But there is food. There is food in the kitchen.
Food all over the place. You see a full trash can to the left right there, too.
Exactly. There is food in the kitchen. So do we know which room is his room?
So we don't exactly know. All we know, Vinny, is that he allegedly says he was kept upstairs, on the upstairs floor, not downstairs. But what I can tell you, Vinny, is some of the things that he told investigators about his living conditions. I mean, he said he drank out of the toilet because he was only provided 2 cups of water a day. He had to steal food from kids at school before he was taken out of school. He had to eat out of the garbage. He said he was locked in his room 22 to 24 hours a day. But one of the most gruesome things about it, Vinny, is when he said he had to use the restroom, he says he was not allowed to go to a restroom or a bathroom at all. He talked about when he had to urinate in bottles, and then he rigged up this tube, this funnel type deal of straws, and ran it out of a window and then disposed of the urine that way. And then, Vinny, again, this is a graphic detail here. He said when he had to defecate, he had to squat over newspapers, and then once he relieved himself, he wrapped the papers up, tied the papers off with string from old unraveled t-shirts, and then the few rare occasions that he says Sullivan would allow him out of the room to do chores, he would take that down to the kitchen garbage. So all of these details, according to him and according to that warrant affidavit, Vinny, sounds like less than ideal living situations.
Sharonda Brown, she's denying all of it. I want to make that clear, but let's start with the presumption that he's telling the truth about all of this. Why would he not figure out a way out of there before age 32? Is there, psychologically, would there be something preventing him, or would it be only physical restraint, do you believe, that would stop him from reaching out for help and trying to get out of that situation?
No, before people move physically, mentally, they have to be captivated. So if mentally he is enslaved, no, he won't go anywhere, because there's a fear there that something will happen. And we see this all the time with victims of abuse and neglect. They have to be mentally controlled first, and that's where it starts. It always starts mental before it becomes physical. Most of the time, there's a fear that has to be there that's placed in the mind before a person even decides to go. So the mental anguish probably took place for the first decade, and then as he got older, you know, the physical began, and so those things make it hard. So you have to get somebody mentally first before you can get them physically, and make them convince them that something bad would happen to them if they were to leave, if they were to tell someone. And so a lot of the details in this case coincide with how abuse happens, and abuse is just a result of someone wanting control and power. When someone wants control and power, they will begin to abuse you, and people don't just wake up one day and decide to be abusive. They have to have been abused themselves. So it becomes this cycle, and it happens for a very, very long time. And so it sounds just from the conditions of the household, these weren't parents who even took care of themselves, let alone children.
Cody, any more photos from upstairs in that home?
We do have some of those photos, Vinny. We'll bring them up on the screen right now. We can go to a messy bedroom that's full of clutter all over the bed. And when you look at the picture, you can see it looks kind of charred. Looks like that's where a fire may have started. You see all that fire, all that stained wall of fire right there, wall of smoke from the fire, I should say. A lot of stuff all over the place. We'll move along to, again, the messy bedroom. You can see well, that's another bedroom right there with some clothes hanging on a shelf back there, or hanging on a door frame. A lot more smoke on the walls. And then we have there's the messy bedroom I was referring to. You see all the stuff all over the bed. There's a tub, there's clothes everywhere all over the place. You see, it looks like some broken blinds leaning up against the bed in that bedroom. And then you have a messy bathroom as well here, Vinny. You can see once the bathroom is shown, well, we're still in the messy bedroom right now, but in that bathroom you can see a medicine cabinet that looks like it has a little mold inside the door. It's just not, again, Vinny, not the most ideal, not the most clean. living situation at all. You can see that right there. That's what I was referring to on the right of the screen. It looks like dark, dingy, mold, mildew, and that's where the medicine is being kept in this bathroom. So again, less than ideal, not the cleanest place to be living at the time when he was found.
Well, the pictures do tell a story of what was going on to a certain extent in that house. The question for the jury will be whether or not it was the stepmother who was doing it, or if this 32-year-old who is 68 pounds was doing it to himself. Cody Thomas, thank you so much. Sharon is going to stay with us. When we come back, could this have been prevented? Do you have a message for your son? Karen Reed, a killer girlfriend?
She's guilty.
Or the scapegoat in an elaborate cover-up?
Karen Reed was free.
Karen Reed is accused of murdering her police officer boyfriend.
And it's stated repeatedly, I hit him, I hit him.
She may end up taking the stand. Her first trial ended with a hung jury. They haven't proven anything.
Will a jury finally agree on a verdict?
We know who did it.
The Karen Reed murder retrial. Live coverage coming soon following jury selection on Court TV.
Do you have a message for your son?
I'm sorry he had to go through this. I can't.
Tracy Valloran talking about her son, age 32, was just 68 pounds, set fire to the home he was living in with his stepmother after his father died, was carried out. He said he set the fire to be rescued, not from the fire, but from what he alleges is captivity. The stepmother says none of that is true. Now, the Department of Children and Families was involved in this case decades ago. Take a listen to what Tracy Valloran, the biological mother, has to say about that.
When DCF was called in 2004, several times, they did nothing. They did absolutely nothing. And just because you have a clean house does not mean you have a healthy house. And he could have been taken out of that in 2004 if DCF did their job.
And that brings us to the next question in our investigation. Could this have been prevented? Yeah, that's what the Department of Children and Families is for. Like, if someone sees something and says something and they investigate, you try to save a child. Here with us, retired First Justice of the Worcester County Juvenile Court and author of A Cruel Injustice, How Massachusetts Put 4-Year-Old Harmony in the Hands of a Monster. Judge Carol Erskine is with us. Also joining us, certified mental health counselor who specializes in child abuse, neglect, trauma, Sharonda Brown. Judge, what are your thoughts? Could this have been prevented going back in time to 2004 when a teacher calls DCF?
Oh, good evening, Vinnie. I think it absolutely could have been prevented. I mean, if you take a look back at what was happening in Connecticut in around about 2004, and actually between 1997 and 2004, the Department of Children and Families was actually under investigation. There was a huge investigation by the Attorney General's office at that time, released in 2003, which revealed as what they called very troubling findings, which they didn't expect. And what it showed was the Department of Children and Families was taking in reports from central intake and closing them within 24 hours. Sometimes they would substantiate the allegations and just not follow through and provide any safety for the children. And other times they would just call it unsubstantiated. There were 2,600 each year. They said there were 2,600 reports of abuse that they found unsubstantiated, and they also weren't using the courts. So it's amazing to look back and see that there was actually an ongoing and really critical investigation of the Department of Children and Families just absolutely failing to follow through. So I think in that respect, I think the department failed in every way. They were there. They apparently, according to the victim, he said he remembered having a social worker come and talk to him in the 4th grade. He also said that he was told when DCF came in that he had to say that he was being fed, that if he didn't, they would deny food, even more food from him. So I think this is a massive failure. And I think what it shows is that child welfare agencies for 2 decades in so many states are just dangerously dysfunctional.
Yeah, I want to pull that part of the arrest affidavit that you mentioned there, Judge. He was permanently pulled out of school. This resulted in DCF responding to the home on 2 occasions. When they were there, we're talking about the victim, was told by Kimberly Sullivan, the stepmother, allegedly, to tell them everything was fine. The male victim stated that he was provided worksheets for a short period of time, but the skill level never advanced and no one was teaching him anything. Sharonda Brown, could this have been prevented?
Absolutely, it could have been prevented. I think when people care, it can be prevented. Unfortunately, some people are reactive and not proactive. To be proactive means to put in a lot of work ahead of time. And when you know something is happening, it requires you to do something about it. And I think sometimes people would rather deny that there's a problem so they don't have to do anything about it. There is a lot of paperwork that goes into handling cases and investigating and having courts involved in follow-up. And so I know a lot of times some of the workers are burned out. They don't want to do the work, or they believe they aren't supported. So a lot of these cases fall by the wayside. And then some of these workers don't feel safe going into some of these situations because they don't believe that they have the support of their supervisors or the administration for the companies that they work for. So I know that there's a lot of layers to why these cases go unsolved and why some of these are easier unsubstantiated than they are found with findings. So I think that it's important to recognize that this is a huge issue that not just DCFS has to deal with or DFS has to deal with, but I think that it begins with the circumstances in which the child was given away to begin with. We have to look at the big picture of everything and everybody involved. It wasn't just the state who failed this child. There were so many people in this situation who failed him, and here we are, but it definitely could have been prevented.
Well, I want to thank you both. We are going to continue to follow all the developments in this story. Judge Carol Erskine, always great to see you. And Sharonda Brown, thank you as well. Folks, this story is sad. This story is tragic. But what is alleged here is extremely serious. These allegations are allegations of torture. This is not humane. And that's why if this case gets in front of a jury, it may be virtually impossible, even if you have the greatest attorney in the world, to convince a jury that there's reasonable doubt in this case. That's why I suspect this case will end with a deal unless prosecutors are unwilling to offer one. I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues.